to Straight Talk No Chaser. This month is about revolution and not just a conversation. So, today, guys, we're kicking it off with my good brother, Travis. I don't know what you want me to call you, Trav. Everybody knows you as Trillionaire Trav.
Trillionaire Trav. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. So, today we're going to be unpacking mindset to manifest, aligning your inner work, your inner world with your outer wealth. So, Travis, if you wanted, I wanted you to give the audience, a little bit about you, what it is that you normally talk about and educate when you were, outside educating, and then
Right.
also lead us into this conversation today.
Well, great. I'm glad you're having me on the podcast. I'm excited. Like you said, I'm back outside. A little 2 year hiatus to work on a lot of personal things and do some shadow, a lot of shadow work. You hear that word a lot.
Correct.
And I felt like it was my time to, kind of step away from teaching so much and get back in my master student bag because that's what actually made me the person I am today. So with that being said, yes, I love the topic that we're speaking on today. It's right in alignment with what I stand for. Actually, the word, like I said, I go by the name Trillionaire, Trav, and the Trill is a combination of, actually, Trillionaire is a combination of three words. The Trill being truth and reality, a merger of truth and reality. And usually when we see Yanair at the end of the word, it represents a certain amount of abundance.
Okay.
So, and the word TRAV, which is actually my name, but the acronym is Truth, Reality, Abundance, and Visualization. So I feel like, yeah, this is right down my lane as far as me, what I've been doing for the last, well, I'll say since 95, I came into what's coined knowledge of self or consciousness. Actually was kind of raised in a lifestyle. My mother was the president of the Black Student Union at her local college when I was young. And I remember her, giving me books on African and melanated royalty,
Mm.
and making me read those books as a form of homeschooling. This was after school. So after school, I would get out. Before I can actually go outside, I would have to put an hour into learning about our people.
Mm.
So I go to school, get educated. This was before homeschooling was a real big thing. It was like, now I see a lot of people have actually transitioned into homeschooling their kids, which is awesome. But back then, it was more like everybody went to school, and if you didn't, the cops was coming to your house. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't certain sovereignty laws and certain things that we know of today in the age of the Aquarius. So yeah, she shouts out to my mom for putting me in those positions. I hated it. I'm not even gonna say I hated it, And then what happened was I grew to love it at the age of 15. Started hearing MCs like Nas
Mm.
and Wu Tang speaking on things that I was reading about. And that was like the beginning of my journey of what we would call knowledge of self. Because, like, again, my mom was teaching me a lot about the world, but
Right.
I had to learn more about myself. And that was around 95. I'll say Nas, the incoming of Nas and MCs like AZ. So, to me, it was like, yes, I was in the hood, but I thought it was the coolest thing was to be like, back then it was coined the intelligent hoodlum.
Mm-hmm.
And that was more my lane of rap, what I listened to and what drew me in because I already had a foundation of knowledge of self. So it started there. I was a musician and artist. I won Connecticut Artist of the Year 2 times. So I had a huge following when it came to music. And then for after, I'll say, early 20s, in my early 20s, I started to create different schools of thought for kids my age.
Okay.
So we would meet up at the library every weekend, and we actually called the library the Pyramid. Across the street was the train station. We called
Mm.
the train station the Nile, like as the Nile River. So
Okay.
even back
Okay.
then, we were dealing with alchemy and creating our own paradigm for what we wanted to see in our lifetime. And that's kind of where I started. And you know, I never was big on working a job. I
Mm-hmm.
have jobs as a young age because my mom actually wanted to instill that in me that you have to be self sufficient. But it was something that rebellious spirit that I had when it came to, like, just learning about Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, um, and how they actually did for themselves, and which
Mm.
was allowed them to be as great as they were because there was no barrier in between their, success ladder. So that was
Correct.
for me. So I was always had this internal war with working a job. There was something about working a job that didn't sit right for me. Working with the same person I was calling the oppressor, and it just didn't. It always rubbed me the wrong way. But with that being said, I worked my early years.
Mm-hmm.
Then I ended up getting into the streets.
Okay.
So the streets taught me a tremendous. Uh, 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 it taught me a lot about business. You know, and I've heard people like John Hope Bryant speak, and even Jeezy speak on, like, some of the best business owners actually come from that background
Mm.
because it's dealing with mathematics, it's dealing with marketing, it's dealing with branding. We just had the wrong product.
Correct.
So I was introduced to network marketing. I did a short stint in jail. Just going to fast forward into about 2009, 10. I did a small stint in jail, in prison. I did 13 months, and that was enough for me. I was
Mm.
always a reader, though. So in prison, that's one of the things that separates you. If you're not gossiping, it's kind of like in prison. There's two sides of it. You have those
You're
who are
either learning or you're talking.
developing their mind, or you have people
Mm.
that's gossiping about everything that was going on outside, how they can't wait to get back out there and do that. And for me, it was just kind of like I was heavy into the books.
Mm-hmm.
And I read a book called The Prosperity Bible. And there was books in there such as Think and Grow Rich, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Napoleon Hill, a lot of Neville Goddard, and people of that nature. It
Mm-hmm.
was teaching finances from a quantum perspective. Me already being a spiritual being, and coming up and being raised under the school of Dr. Malachi York at the time,
Mm-hmm.
I understood the importance of universal right knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, which leads to sound right reasoning.
Right.
So it was important for me to go in there and really focus on what I wanted to do when I got out. I knew I wanted to do music. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But also, it was just the business aspect of it. I knew, like, a lot of times, a lot of people where I'm from, we just was rapping, hoping someone would sign us. So we
Right.
still had
Right.
slave mentality. We were still
Mm.
looking for someone outside of self to save us, hoping that they compensate us well for our skill set, which never happens, as you see today with the artists. It's a lot of complaining going on because they didn't
Yeah.
have that business aspect, which is
Right.
every Jay-Z said, I am the business. So
Correct.
boom, I'm going to say the Prosperity Bible, which is 19 different books on quantum physics, metaphysics, and how to transform your mind so that you
Mm.
become aligned with currency. So
Right.
you're not chasing currency, you're aligned. And that really helped me a lot. So when I came home, I was focused on doing the right thing. I was talking to positive messages. I always had a huge following, especially on Facebook at the
Mm.
time, on
Mm.
social media. And a lady reached out to me via my inbox and said, "Hey, you have a strong voice. A lot of people listen to you. I think that you would be great at working from home,
Right.
network marketing." And she gave me, the rundown. I went to my first meeting, and it blew my mind. They say keys open doors, and a lot of times we don't know the verbiage.
Mm.
Um, in the Bible it says in the beginning was the word. So it's like if you don't know the verbiage, if you don't speak that sacred language, certain doors you can't get into.
That's
So
correct.
once I learned the power of residual income, I didn't even know that word, assets over liabilities, um, and things of that nature, I was mind blown. I'm like, oh, I got to make me some residual income. I need to
Mm.
be able to do stuff for a certain amount of time, and then even if I stop doing it, I'm getting paid in my sleep. That was
Correct.
big to me. It was almost like I got slipped a Mickey. I went out prophesizing on how black people need this network marketing thing, and we need to work for ourselves. And
Mm.
for a while, a lot of people thought I was tripping because I came from, like I said, the streets, and I was rapping. I
Mm.
went Like, on the corner, hanging out. Even though I always had knowledge of self, I blended in. So the pants sagging and all of that too. The blazer,
Mm-hmm.
shirts, you
Okay.
know, um, Clark's. It was a whole different me, and it was like people saw I wasn't just talking online. When they would see me in public, they're like, "Yo, bro, I respect what you're doing, the way you dress, and all of this." I saw that it was actually making a difference, not only for myself but for others, and that was
Right.
really the start of my journey into financial literacy and the emergence of it with knowledge of self. That was kind of like the essence of my foundation was
Yeah.
network.
So that's actually a really good story. That's a lot of context. But one thing I wanted to ask you starting out, because I heard you drop a lot of keys in there, and a lot of it resorts around mindset, which this is alignment. We didn't script this, if anybody's listening. This is not scripted. I just asked Trav to come in, have a conversation with me because we have a series that we're starting on mindset, scarcity mindset, financial literacy, knowledge of self. However, the things that you touched on leads me into my next question. So, tell me what you think about this. So many people are focused on the hustle, the grind, the external pursuit of money, but our title suggests the real work starts inside. And I wanted to know from your perspective, what does aligning your inner world look like in order for you to produce all of the things that you told me about in all of your transitions? So, somebody starting at any point in that journey, what would that look like for them? Like, for instance, the person coming from the streets, because there's different versions of the streets. So you can be at the very bottom where you're strung out on something, not really wanting to go home, stuck out there in the streets, can't come back. But you're having these conversations. All kinds of people are having these conversations. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
they're hearing it. So, what would that look like for somebody coming out of that situation?
Well, I always like to have four, what I would call the four planes of existence.
Mm,
I feel like alignment is more than just the mind or more
mm,
than just the spirit. All four of these things have to be taken seriously in order for one to achieve tremendous success. So with those planes would be the spiritual plane,
mm,
and that plane exists source, what some people would consider God or law. I like to call it the all, everything,
right.
right? The everything. So that's the first plane. Then the next plane will be the mental plane. So getting your mind right, understanding, whether it's the superfoods, the reading, what you're listening to, what you're watching, you have total control over those things. The next will be the soul plane, also known to some as the emotional plane.
Mm,
So your desires, how you feel about yourself is very important, because you can pray, you can do all the praying you want, you can read all the books you want, but if you don't feel worthy, then it won't work for you,
mm,
right? And
mm-hmm.
then last but not least is the physical plane. So tools of the magi is what I would call the physical plane. The physical plane is consists of tools that we use to get to the next level of existence to make us feel good. Some people just don't feel good without money. Some
Right.
people just don't feel good without their assessment, such as their jewelry. And I'm here to tell you, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's other planes of existence that must align with to ultimately give you the totality. So, again, for me, it looks like, for one, knowing that source is abundant,
Mm,
infinite. It says in a lot of our sacred scrolls that it's most important to be fruitful and multiply.
mm,
Because if we feel a certain way about the homeless, poverty, and assisting, then we can't be of that world.
mm-hmm.
To be in that world, but somebody, it's like if somebody's drowning, somebody has to get ashore to assist them on getting out. So my point is just kind of clearly like we have to put ourselves in a position spiritually first, knowing that the source is infinite, it's
Right.
abundant. And if we are made in its image and its likeness, then that means by our birthright, we are abundant. We
Mm-hmm.
are infinite with the things that we can actually obtain. So I think that's the first thing, is understanding that everything that you want already wants you.
Yep, that's
Number
true.
two is the mindset and learning. Learning, being financially literate is very important. Um, Money is everything that most people do on a daily basis is based around money.
Mm.
So to be scared to learn about money is doesn't make sense to me. And I see it a
Mm-hmm.
lot. You know,
Mm.
people go to work, they work 50, 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't know what an asset is. They don't know the difference between an asset and a liability. They don't know to, if they wanted to invest, they don't know where to put their money. They're not reading the right books. They're not watching the right things. So I
Mm-hmm.
think mentally you have to put yourself in a position where you are aligning your mindset with those who already have what you want for yourself.
That's
That's
true.
ultimately important as well. Emotionally, the feeling of excitement as if you already have it,
Mm.
right? Um, because time is an illusion. Some
Right.
people live in the past, some people live in the present, some people live in the future, some people know how to jump timelines and
Mm.
do a little bit of everything. And it's like being a mixed martial artist. You know,
Right.
the person who knows how to do everything can ultimately usually beat the guy that just knows how to box. If y'all know how to kick,
Mm.
grapple, make do things on the ground, you know, I have a tremendous advantage over you. So we have to learn how to actually jump timelines and in the past, understand that, you know, these things are what helped us, shaped us to how we feel about certain things. Some things we may need to let go, some things we may need to hold on to.
Mm.
In the present, feeling as if I'm already worthy, I already have it. They always say, you know, the which is like a certain, like the noise of the beginning of things.
Mm-hmm.
So in that word is I am, right? So it's like the emotional part of knowing that I am worthy, I deserve, um, and try to get out of the whole I thing too, because I is more ego and we is more community based. And I
All
really, the more
encompassing.
you help other people, the more you help yourself.
Correct.
And then last but not least, in the physical plane, just actually doing the work. I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people may do all three of those, but then they don't want to do the work. Um, and that
That's a
work
good
may
one.
not just be physical. It may be just working on yourself, working on your
Mm.
habits, working on, you know, your spending habits. Sometimes exercising will
Come
just
on
make
now.
you feel a certain way. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's optimum health. You feel a certain way. You carry yourself a certain way. And
Mm-hmm.
I learned with that comes a truth. You sometimes people judge you on how you look before they even talk to you. So a lot of times to get in these doors that we're being left out of, if you're overly obese, and we
Mm.
again this is the Real Talk podcast, so we're just keeping it 1,000. I'm not really trying to
Yep.
sugarcoat everything. If you're overly
Exactly. No
obese,
chasers here.
you may lose out on an opportunity for somebody who's better fit because the company
Mm.
looks at you as a brand or a representation of them, and they're like, nah, I'd rather go with this person who's in
Mm-hmm.
better shape, looks better, feels better. You know, again, like I said, you know, how you look ultimately affects how you feel. How you feel affects how you think. And how you think affects how you manifest.
That is completely correct. Now, I actually wanted to touch on something because you were, I'm not even going to say making innuendos, but you were hinting around it, but you hadn't said it yet. I think you said it once, scarcity mindset. So, I talk a lot about generational traumas. I mean, I talk about a range of things on Straight Talk No Chaser, but because this is coming up in our series that we're doing for the people, um, I wanted you to expound a little bit because I know it comes up in your work. Scarcity mindset, how that leads into, or not leads into, how it stems from, generational traumas, generational cycles, generational history repeats. Also, how that affects just the mindset to be able to go out and manifest these things because you have to believe it. But if your environment doesn't show it, do you really believe it? You could be saying these things, but do you actually believe that you deserve these things? Not necessarily you, but the people who would be saying this to themselves. And even people who look like they've healed past a certain point still have that lack mentality or that scarcity mindset, or they don't even believe that they necessarily even, what's the word, can obtain it. They have businesses, services, they help people through Reiki, through whatever, but they don't even believe that they deserve the abundance and they operate in that. So I wanted you to touch on, which is hilarious, everything that I have a bullet for, you're walking right into it. So this makes this an amazing conversation that but yeah, touch on those things for me and expound for people because again, we're in two different timelines. You're my elder respectfully, but two different timelines, and if it's 10 years or less and it's repeating that fast, that means we're not learning anything.
Mm, right,
Nobody's learning anything. Everybody
right.
is just acquiring knowledge and they're not applying it. So what do you think about, scarcity mindset, how all those things play into you being able to manifest what it is that you want and
I
what that
think
would
that
look like?
the biggest problem
Mm,
is the scarcity mindset.
mm-hmm,
Um, the scarcity mindset, it, it's really based on fear.
mm,
The fear of what may happen and then scarcity also not just the fear of what may happen, but that it may not work, it may not be enough for everybody, or somebody may have already did that. So all of these things are whatever you tell yourself is true. You have to understand
mm-hmm,
the power of transmutation and the things that we believe and say about ourselves is ultimately our truth.
mm-hmm.
So I can preach to the choir and to the masses, like they do Reiki and do all of these things,
Correct.
but there's something within me that is based on lack, is based
Mm-hmm.
on scarcity, and I think a lot of that stems from religion. One, um, because religion confines you to a form of scarcity. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want to learn about things outside of what you already know,
Correct.
right? So, um, I feel it goes back to spirituality and understanding that the all is everything. And if we're made in its image and its likeness, then ultimately our birthright is one of abundance. So we have to understand that competition, ego, using the
Mm-hmm.
word I, replacing the
Mm-hmm.
word I with the word we, will help people come up out of the scarcity mindset. Because what happens with the word I is what you're doing is you're putting yourself against source,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're putting yourself against everything else. And you ultimately can't win that war because there's always going to be somebody with more money than you. There's
Mm.
always going to be somebody with more land than you. There's always going to be somebody with more real estate than you. There's always going to be somebody with more assets than you. So if you're basing what you're doing on upon what other people are doing outside the self, then what you're doing is you're creating competition.
Mm-hmm.
And competition is based on scarcity. It's
Mm.
based on it's not enough for everybody, so I gotta get mine.
Right.
And I'm learning, with our culture, that's one of the things we have to let go.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen different people from different backgrounds come into our communities and build
Yep.
fast. Like I said, in 10 years, you know, you can meet a family that across the street that just got here, don't really speak English. 10
Mm-hmm.
years from now, they own 3 houses on the block. Each house has 4 or 5 cars in the parking lot,
Mm-hmm.
dealing with group economics. And we've been here for hundreds of years and struggling to not only pay bills, but pushing our kids out early.
Yep.
You know, you're pushing your kids out to pay $1,500 rent elsewhere where you guys could have bust down whatever you got going on ownership and it would have cost everybody less. It would have cost the
Correct.
kids less. You would have been saving more money for yourself as the parent, and it would have taught you guys a tremendous amount of family morality based around group economics.
Right.
Just a little short story on how I ended up opening on a wellness center back in Connecticut, where I was from. I was pretty much the spokesperson, but we bought that building dealing with group economics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they wanted, close to it was costing close to 20,000 to actually get in, pay the 3 months rent. That's the thing up north. Furnished the place. There was holes in the wall. I couldn't have did that alone, but it was
Hmm.
5 of us. 5 of us, 4 grand. It was rather easy. And that let me know right there. Um, One of the actual partners and everybody did something different.
Mm-hmm.
So I was big on, like I said, the spirituality part, teaching people about, when they come into the store, about the crystals, about the foods, about the herbs. My other partner was great at marketing. He was great at social media, running paid ads. My other partner did construction. So the holes in the wall, he brought his team in and we helped out. We fixed the building up. Everybody brought something to the table. Two of the people rarely was there. They just wanted to be involved with something that consisted of people of color or indigenous original men putting their money together and making something happen. So there are people out there that's waiting. They don't even really have to be involved. They're waiting to just put their money in something, because they've been hearing it a lot. Oh, group economics and do and support your people. There's people that's already on that frequency, but
Correct.
there's not enough people around to where they have money to pool their resources. So I'm from this, when it comes to scarcity mindset, again, I think
Mm-hmm.
that that really truly stems from how we see the world spiritually, and that
Correct.
creates. Yes, okay.
So that's going to take me right into my next question. So, what do you feel about, or not even what do you feel, how do you feel in order of precedence? Where does spiritual alignment lie? So, spirituality, we talk about the belief in something, the belief in all, serving others before serving self so that, the all can work through everyone. Um, but beyond, just having that positive mindset in order to do that, what about being divinely aligned? Because there's timing,
Mm,
there's choices that people have to make, whether it's a good choice, bad choice, whatever. Most people believe, at the end of the day, I'm going to be making the choice eventually, not realizing that the tests, the opposition, your downtime, whether you're, not employed or you're just barely making it, all of those things have a time in your timeline. And if you skip either one of them, you know what I'm saying? You don't get to
right,
where you're going at the right time. Yes, you may possibly, because it's not all the time that you're guaranteed to get there. You may possibly get there, but somebody else may get called in the timeline. And it becomes a relay race. If they don't make it, they make a choice to jump off, then you make a choice to keep going. It's one of those type of situations. So I wanted to get you to touch on that, so we can round out that with spirituality and then now spiritual alignment, how important that is.
to me, that's number one. That's mostly important to me personally. You know, sacrifice. So I think a lot of when we talk about spiritual alignment, I think that that stems from sacrifice. A lot of times we hear sacrifices. It comes with a sense of spookism. Like if blood must be shed or animals must be killed, and I'm with all of that. Anyway, I'm with all of it. But for the most part, um, I feel like we are not willing to sacrifice, and I don't want to say we're not. I'm going to change that up. There's a lot of us that are, and right now we're talking about the chosen ones and those who are with, you know, with the business. So what I'm going to say is spiritual alignment, like you said, mathematics. I truly believe that, and in my school of taught, I was taught that there's only really one absolute truth, and it's mathematics. Because men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. 4 plus 4 is 8. Whether we go to China, Spain, no matter where we go, if I throw up 4 fingers on each hand, a person's going to be able to convey that message or that symbolism as, oh, 8. He wants 8 bananas, right? Or he wants 8. Or he has $8.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like math. I feel like a lot of times we don't do the math. And I think alignment has everything to do with mathematics, the absolute truth, knowing where you're going, knowing what you're investing, knowing what you need back from this investment for it to be beneficial. Um, so yeah, for me, it boils down to doing the math. Like even for just a little quick hack for anybody out there that wants to be a millionaire within the next 5 years without working hard at it. It's simply based around mathematics. If you invest $1,000 a month at 80% returns on a yearly basis, in 5 years, you will ultimately cross the $1 million mark. Now, everything else is extra. You know, all you need to do is for those numbers to line up, you would have to invest $1,000 a month, make 80% returns on your money without withdrawing any. So this is called compound multiplicity again. Be fruitful and multiply. And in 5 years, which is 60 months, you will cross the $1 million threshold. Now, the question is, who's going to sacrifice and take 250 of their hard-earned money that they worked for and pay themselves and put it into some type of stock that does those numbers, that has shown and proven. We're not doing guesswork. We're going back. We're looking at the data. For the last 5 years, this company has done well over 80% a year, and it's still growing. I'm going to use this company, or I'm going to make a portfolio that has different companies that all have crossed the 80% threshold over a yearly basis, over a 5-year time frame, being that these are the math, or this is the math that I need to be successful in whatever I'm trying to do. So again, I just gave you the blueprint on how to become a millionaire in 5 years. For some people, that's not fact. That takes too long. For some people, you've never seen a million in your life at one time. So it's just like you have to pick and choose on what you're willing to sacrifice. Some people are not willing to depart away from $250 a week that they can't touch until they reach this monetary goal. Um, and that again is their devil. That's based on their personal issues that they have within themselves of not feeling worthy of. Some people, believe it or not, refuse to pay themselves. As soon as they get their paycheck, they're looking for a way to get rid of this money. Some people get
Come
their
on now.
some people get their income tax, and the day they cash it, they're looking for a way. And you got to understand, your money is currency. The word currency comes from the word current. A current is a form of a vibrational frequency. This is considered a current. So money is energy. It's actually one of the highest forms of energy in existence. When I was initiated in the Ifa, one of the first things my Babalao told me was a story about a woman who had to choose wealth, generational wealth, over having a child. And, which one was more important to her? She chose the child. And I know most people will say, well, money's not this important, but this is, we have stories in these ancient spiritual systems that prepare us for the future. And what happened was the Olodumare blessed her with a child, but she had no money. So when it was time to feed the child, she had to go into the marketplace. And she went to the first booth and asked for milk. The person wanted to be compensated. They made the whatever she needed, told her how much it was going to cost. She said, "Oh, I can't afford that. Can I please, I have a baby." And they shooed her away. She went to the next booth where they were, cultivating the ducks and the fruits and the veggies and the same thing I need, And to make a long story short, was every booth that she went to turned her away because she couldn't help them feed their child. So we have to understand the importance of energy, and money was created by source so that reciprocity can take place. Because a lot of people want people to do things for them for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the people we would consider narcissists. If you want me to do something for you with nothing in return, that's narcissistic behavior. Reciprocity is a spiritual law. So money is spiritual. So, just to get back into what we were talking about, just, from the spiritual and alignment perspective, I think just we need to really hone in on the fact that reciprocity is a spiritual law. And the only way we're going to be able to go out in the world and help others is if we've attained a certain amount of wealth. Now, the wealth doesn't always have to be monetary. It could be land. Then you meet other people who know
Yep.
how to build on the land. It could be gardening. And you know
Exactly.
other people who can bring things to what you got going on. Oh well, you know you can use this land over here, and you only need this little plot over here to make this amount of boom, 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 boom. So
Yep.
my whole point is this: it's not just about cash, but about assets and currency, energy and reciprocity. So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, no, I love that. So that's actually very powerful. The inner work is truly the foundation. So it's mindset, it's what you, and then the mindset to be able to apply the belief that you can receive it and you deserve to have it. Being able to pay yourself. People, like you said, they get into business or service provision, and the minute they get money, they're spending it out. But that also goes back to mindset. Do you believe that you can even hold on to it? Some people don't believe that they can save. Some people get scared to save. Some people get scared to pay bills. So all of those things matter. And then you touched on community. So with that being said, like Travis said, guys, you have to be open to barter. I tell my clients all the time, we have to hold what is it called? A frequency of abundance. If you don't hold a frequency of abundance, you're going to attract what you are. So if you're an electromagnetic being, whatever it is that you're emitting is what you're attracting. Likes attract likes. The parents were literally saying it. So I don't come from a place where we have the same school of thought, but it is like I can definitely testify. I come from what they call the global south, and that's the teaching for the African descended and indigenous people that were colonized by somebody at some point.
Right.
Was that the story all the time? No, that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, like I think it's pretty cool as you open up on this, and I couldn't have asked for a better person to have this conversation with. You know what I mean? And then you gave the people some homework. I don't know if you even realized it, but you gave them the freebie on how to make $1 million in a year, and then you even broke it down further than that. Can y'all save $250 a week?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
five hundred
And
dollars every 2 weeks. Some people now I do understand some people it is half their paycheck, but if you look at what it is that you're doing, guys, the
you're
hookah,
keeping the money.
the hookah, the snacks, the things that you don't necessarily need, but you say that you want because you can get it. But we all want $1 million. Why can't you go get it?
Right.
you know? So
Absolutely.
that's crazy. That's wild. So, what do you think the biggest mistake is that people make when they're trying to manifest or align their lives in this way? Like, outside
Um,
of not paying themselves and not having the belief, because you got to put in the work to be able to obtain the belief. But what else would you say is a big hindrance?
consistency,
Mm,
showing up every day, doing the same thing over and over again is usually the biggest because everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to be wealthy.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, but at the end of the day, what's stopping us? Even like going down what we just spoke about if you invest $1,000 a month
Right.
for 5 years at 80% growth rate on a
Mm,
year annual basis, which is about 6.7% a month, then you automatically gonna be a millionaire. The
correct.
thing
Correct.
is, most people are not going to run that marathon. Shouts out to Nipsey Hussle because that was his embodiment that he brought to the planet was running the marathon, doing what must be done until what you see in your mind has manifested into your physical reality. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Somebody shared a post with me today about how they were digging for gold, and this one person had dug so deep and so far that they ended up giving up, and somebody else came in their place and only had to dig 3 more feet to obtain the gold that this person had pretty much dug out the whole thing for them. They went 70, it was 80 feet. The goal was 80 feet in the ground. They dug 77 feet, gave up. Somebody came behind them and only had to dig 3 feet and obtained
Oh
all the
wow.
gold that this person had worked for. So
Right.
they stopped running the marathon, even though they saw a vision in their mind on what they wanted for themselves. They eventually gave up and they went the majority of the way. So what I
Correct.
realized with a lot of us is just consistency, doing the same thing over and over and over again. And a good book you
Mm-hmm.
can read on Um, why consistency is important is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, which is one of the best
That's
books
a
that
good
I've
book.
ever read.
It is.
What that book did for me was just kind of teach me the importance of doing a little bit every day, brick by brick. Eventually, you'll have a project building. Eventually you have a house, then you have a projects, then you own a city, and then you own a state, and then you own, everybody started
An
small.
island.
Right. So I feel like consistency is a major hindrance, and that again, it just goes back into wanting everything fast. Fast doesn't always mean good,
Correct.
but urgent, being urgent is very important. Getting started today with what you have. A lot of
Mhm.
us are waiting for things to arrive for us to start doing certain things when you can start where you are. You don't have to get a gym membership to start working out. Go
That
walk,
part.
go right outside and start walking. Walk, do 100 jumping jacks while you walk. As you walk, do 100
Exactly.
squats. Do 100 push-ups. Right. So a lot of us are waiting for the perfect time when the perfect time is always right now. What can I do right now to get this ball rolling? And the importance of momentum. Also, I picked up
Mhm.
that from network marketing. You know, Building momentum is key.
Correct.
Seeing, a lot of times we need proof of the work. So, seeing the same. Okay, so I'll just give you one quick little story about
Mhm.
how that helped me.
Yeah.
Empire, where I was making $20,000 to $30,000 a month, and this was 2 years ago with my We Trade Sports business. So what happened was, I I've had ups and I've had tremendous runs up and down. Where some months I would make 5,000, some months I would make 9,000, some months I would be lazy and look, and I made 1,200. And I
Right.
had this one customer that reached out to me via inbox and said, Travis, I've been with you for 3 months, and we've had some good months. We never really had some bad months, but we had months where we were like kind of even keeled. And she
Mm.
said, what I realized is the months where we wasn't peaking, you were on social media chasing likes. Like you were being a comedian, which you are funny, but that's not what I paid you for. She was like, when I first met you, all you talked about was your business, which convinced me that you were an expert, which is why I joined. So she said, I would like for you to go back to that person, or, I'm not going to pay anymore because I feel
Mhm.
like, I want the most out of my money. And I could have been like, oh, what the hell is she talking about? Like, I'm a boss. She don't know what, like, well, I don't even know. She tripping. But I went to my page and I scrolled down and I just did like this. And it was all memes, funny memes, like me trying, making people laugh, and yeah, I was getting
Mhm.
traction, but I'm like, okay, I'm only posting about my business once a day, and it was
Yeah.
really the results from yesterday, so it
Mm.
wasn't teaching. So I said, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to dedicate 90 days to just nothing but my business, and I did that, and no lie, I ended up hitting $20,000 a month. Um, Within like not even 2 months. And it was, had everything to do with timing. Certain sports was going on at the time.
Okay.
But the most important thing was that I was consistent about what I'm an expert in. And it actually made me more money than I've ever made in a monthly, and this was consistently. And I'm like, I just kind of like fell in love with the process. Like, wow. So I really was winging it in the beginning. I
Mm.
was I had a sense of freedom and sovereignty because I was working for myself, but I could have been making $20,000 a month for 4 or 5 years straight,
Right.
and
Had
I
you have
wouldn't
been
be in the
that kind of
situation that I
consistent.
was in. So consistency is most important to me. I think showing up every day and doing the little things is more important than. So one of my mentors when I was coming up playing baseball was like, get on. He was like, it's more important to get on base than look for a homer. Person who's always looking for a homer rarely hits one, and the person that's trying to get on base is always hitting a homer.
Correct.
So I would just say get on base. Do the one thing every day that's going to get you closer to your goal and stay consistent.
That is impactful. That's powerful. I appreciate you, Travis. Inner work, you guys, is truly the foundation, and locking yourself in with people who have like minds, like habits. If it's not the same habits as what it is that you are currently doing, but you're trying to get better, you lock in with the people, of course, do a vibe check. But you lock in with the people who are where you're trying to go. So that way you can create. Because if you don't know it, you can create it. But if you get the information and now you're getting into places where you know how to apply it, you can meet people via networking, via when you go out to the bars and you're talking to people about random things, talk about something else. Talk about something that you learned. You know what I'm saying? Spark another type of conversation as opposed to the things that you're used to laughing about, joking about, carrying on about. Like I see people in the comment section sometimes they're like, this is my type of carrying on, but it's like, what kind of carrying on are you trying to have going on? Um,
Mm.
I can't wait to sit with you next week, Trav, because I know that when I start to talk to you about, the personal journey and how that affects the community overall, because we touched on those things, and that's what we're going to be bringing up for the people next week. I know that's going to be a very impactful conversation overall. Um, I truly appreciate you for that unfiltered truth. You are amazing. Is there
Yeah,
anything else that you wanted? No, I appreciate you as well. Is there anything else that you wanted to tell the people before we have to go for the evening?
yeah, I definitely wanted to let them know that we will be interviewing 19 Keys, so check look out for that.
Okay,
We
yes,
really
on.
got working and setting things in motion. Another
Mm-hmm.
thing to do is shout you out for bringing me back outside
Oh,
because
yeah,
I
man.
really
If it
haven't,
wasn't for Sanye,
you know,
Sanye,
uh,
definitely, I appreciate
that's
her.
been doing for the last 20 years, and I kind of felt like I was giving away too much at a certain point, and then you realize you haven't did enough. So for
Correct.
me to be doing in these type of spaces and doing these type of interviews is
Mm,
very much important in my process and me just being a better version of myself. So
right.
thank you, shout out to you for bringing me back outside now that I'm
I
outside
appreciate it.
on my this side, you heard?
Well, I can't wait to build on this next week. This is Madonna Marie, and you guys have been listening to Straight Talk No Chaser, where we definitely aim to inspire, educate, and reform our people on a global scale. All right, so we'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.